West Tigers fans, welcome into another episode of the West Tigers Life Coaches Report with Adel, Hage, coming in from up there in Brisbane. Thank you very much again, Adel, for joining us. Before we get to the fellas as they break down what was a very dire afternoon down there in Melbourne. Rob, myself, and Az were at the Orange Grove Hotel, full of cheer, with many other, and thank you to the Orange Grove Hotel for looking after us as they always do. You'll be able to find that on the stream on the YouTube channel. Please give us a like if you want to see some very, very happy people on a stream, like a few games this year, or some very, very sad and angry West Tigers fans, and you can catch us on the stream at the YouTube channel. And also, we'll be back out at Campbelltown on Sunday getting some post-game reactions. You might have seen that on our socials. So at West Tigers Life on TikTok, Instagram, and X as well. If you want to argue with us on X, feel free. Mr. Bashara is back on the X as well. So at Bashara Rob as well. He's back there on the Twitter or X, whatever you want to call it. Righto, let's get into the show tonight. Welcome in Mr. Bashara firstly. Thank you. Look, at the end of that game yesterday, we're all so bitterly disappointed, but you've had 24 hours to recover, so it's probably lucky that we're doing it on a Monday instead of a Sunday. Let us know your quick, the last 24 hours, cool down, kind of regroup and have a think about what happened yesterday. Have you changed your opinion at all of yesterday? You were quite passionate on the stream, and for everyone that joined us at the Orange Grove that had a chat afterwards with you, you were very, very passionate and angry. How are you feeling now?
I'm okay. I think I'm pretty much the same. I'm in a good mood, to be honest, but it was embarrassing. It was just an embarrassing performance. I mean, I'd liken it to a Mother's Day massacre. That's what it really was. I expected so much more from this team, given how close we were to full strength. We basically had a starting forward pack. Our bench has been pretty much identical to the one we've had, with the exception of Sukar in for Bird, which was done voluntarily by Benji, not forced. The back line was only missing Skelton and Starfatoa. I thought this was going to show us where we're at. I've seen a really good team, a really resilient team for 9 rounds. And whether you expect it to win or not, obviously I'm a Tigers fan, so I'd like it to be a good performance. But that was totally unexpected. I thought it was a really inept performance. I thought we were poorly prepared. Defensively, we looked like kids compared to them. Almost like it was, some of the tries were under 8s. They did get a couple of lucky tries. The first and third tries were a little bit streaky, but we just didn't look like we believed in ourselves, in my opinion, and we expected to lose, and we lost. And it was just disappointing, because I think it just undoes a lot of the good work we've done. I know we're allowed to have bad performances, but that's just inexcusable, in my opinion. But I'm really looking forward to hearing what my man Adel says. I'm sure he'll find some positives amongst it, but I'll just lead into something we'll talk about later in the game. I throw this result 100% on Benji. 100% on Benji. And I also believe the only defence Benji has is, I felt from the second half last week, Josh and Adel, that this team looks like it's been screaming out for the bye. They look really tired. Even though guys like Terrell May made a lot of tackles and is still trying hard, he just looks at 3/4 pace. He looks flat. He looks overworked. It's probably going to cost him his Origin spot, because he's probably playing the longest minutes of any prop in the competition this year. And I think he's being overworked. And given Fanua Bole is a big chance of being out this week, I'm pretty sure he's going to be asked to play 80 minutes against South Sydney in, again, another must-win game. But that's enough from me. I would love to hear from Adel.
Yeah, welcome, Adel. Thank you very much for joining us again, this time on a Monday night. You were coaching yesterday while the game was happening. So you put yourself through a rewatch, having known the result?
Yeah, I've actually watched it twice now, and I did do a bit of a recap this afternoon with a few things. But yeah, look, It's hard because I feel like Rob and I are going to clash tonight quite a bit because he's come out all guns blazing. But we'll get to that, I reckon.
Well, that's a good moment for me to step aside and get out of the way of you two heavy weights. I'm the little banter weight that'll drop out, and take it away, Mr. Bashara.
Thanks, Josh. Okay, Adel. Maybe just some basic impressions of the game, whether you want to go first half, second half, mention anything specifically. You've heard what I've had to say about, in particular, line speed. Defence was, I thought, quite awful. What do you have to say about the game and our performance? And if you want to touch on Melbourne, you're welcome to.
Yeah, I think first thing I'll say, I'll learn up to this that I predicted we'd win 13 plus last week. So, and that was off the back of sort of some conversations I'd had and the confidence that was going into and the confidence in the challenge coming into the game. So, yeah, look, that was completely wrong, and you own up to it. I don't want to be the guy that's perceived as delusional because I'm not, okay? But I am someone that's got to a stage with football and with coaching where I can almost differentiate my emotions from my reality of what I believe in every situation to be. Look, this is the day that we decided to come up with our worst performance of the year, and Melbourne decided to come up with their best. I think that the ugly thing for us is the scoreline. Okay, I don't think it's so much about anything more than the fact that we got beat by 64 points. Now I get that. I understand that that's in reality when that hits you. It's like it's not a punch in the face. It's a sledgehammer on the top of the head, and while you're on the ground out cold, they're still kicking you on the ground. That's what it feels like. So I get that and I understand that. But in reality, it's just another game we've lost. And I know that sounds crazy because we've just lost by 60. But in the reality to who we are and where we are in our new phase of our club with the new structure around our administration, it's just another loss for us. Now, in saying that, and I don't want to go too far into what we're going to talk about later, yes, the reaction to this is very, very important. I agree with you, Rob. We're 100% looking for the buy. I'll talk about our draw and how much of an impact it's had on our season so far a little bit later. This was as much about Melbourne as it was about us, in my opinion, because I did say to you early in the year, like when Melbourne put it on, they turned it on. Like they were nailing it. Like some of the plays they come up with, and I went back and watched every try today, and the tone was set on the first try. Okay, the tone was absolutely set with that first try of the game. Part of it was a little bit like, oh, come on, guys, we've got to be a bit better than that. But a little bit like, Jesus, like Melbourne just would throw a pass and hit the guy. But I will say this, and I'm not blaming these guys, but the tone is set by the first try when Pappenhausen kicks the ball into the in goal. Naden and Dewey are both ahead of Pappenhausen, and both of them sort of almost relied on the other person. And that's not on them too. I think that was across the board the whole day. I only think two of our good players had a good game, and I will talk about another moment a little bit later on. But that set the tone for us early. I think Melbourne tasted our blood, and we both know that Craig Bellamy would have been not impressed with the fact that Melbourne over the last 3-4 weeks have got out to leads and been run down on occasions or sort of softened up in the second half. They foot on the throat yesterday, on Sunday, but yeah, we were the victims of it. Could we have been better? 100%. I still believe at 10-0, we show real good promise in attack. We shift the ball really well from one side to the other, strip them. Dewey gets tackled. We show nothing like we've done previously in the year. Shift it again, strip them again for numbers. And that's the inexperience of Charlie Staines playing centre. I watched it again. Buller's pass is perfect. It's out in front of Staines. If he runs onto it, he catches it and scores untouched. 10-4, 10-6. We all know it's rugby league is momentum. It changes. We didn't. Melbourne took advantage of it. We're playing the Melbourne Storm. We're playing the best team in the comp. You don't get chances to get away with that sort of stuff against a team like that. You can't turn up to Melbourne fatigued, which it looked like we were. You can't turn up to Melbourne not at your absolute best. That's what I thought it was.
Yeah, look, I'm not going to be too much of an apologist tonight, as you can tell from the tone of my opening comments. You mentioned there are a couple of bomb tries. One where you said that pass from Buller, like if it goes to Charlie, it's actually a two-man overlap. Like one of them scores, whether it's Charlie or whether it's Tito. And then obviously there's the other one where Charlie got the ball. If he just throws the dummy to Taruva, he scores untouched. It might have been a little bit earlier. So you put 2 tries on there, you're potentially 12 points. You take out that first try, which was a really poor pass from Garlick out the back of everyone before it ends up getting into Pappenhausen's hands and kicking it. And then you take out the short dropout try where we seemed all in on trying to get the ball back and no one was really covering for that inside ball to Pappenhausen. I mean, who gets a hat-trick within 17 minutes of a game? Like it's just unheard of. So we technically take, it was 34-0 at half time. You take 12 points off them, put 12 points on us, and it's, 22-12 and you're not too far out of the game. I'm not going to touch on the 11 tries, Adel, but I know you mentioned Naden and Dewey. For me, watching that try, it was Naden showing no desperation. He was clearly in front of Pappenhausen. He just didn't look like he was interested, mate. I don't know. Is he just waiting for Dewey to get the ball there, or is he should he have realised Pappenhausen's on the fly to get there?
No, I watched both angles. I think they're both. It's equal. It's equal there. Like they both sort of looked at each other. Look, I will say this about that first try, and at some stage it's going to catch up to you. We've talked about the fact that our first contact hasn't been great the last couple of weeks. But what we've done really well is we've scrambled. And I think we were guilty of, because of the fact that the way the play played out, because we're such a team keen to be involved and scramble and help, because our left side almost sort of switched across, or Naden had it at least. It sort of compromised when the ball got switched back. But look, that's it. I'm a little bit different. I've taken myself out from an emotional perspective in regards to how I support the team. I sort of have to take it from a coach's perspective, and that's just how my brain's been trained at the moment. So, it's hard for me to sort of review the game and sort of not treat it the same way I would if I was a part of the coaching staff, where you're sort of really, almost taking a step back, looking at the squad, figuring out what our season has been so far, and almost going, well, we're kind of expecting that. The last thing we would have wanted after our first 9 rounds that we've had is to go to Melbourne to play Melbourne. Hindsight probably tells you that. And I don't know, do you want me to expand on that now about our draw, Rob, or would you like me to?
I will let you talk about the draw. Just before you do that, I'll give it a little bit of context. I'm not being totally negative. Prior to yesterday, Melbourne had played, I think, five games in Melbourne. Now, this isn't the invincible Melbourne Storm. This is the Storm prior to yesterday, who have had 5 wins, 3 losses. They had a bye as well. Like they haven't been the absolute world beaters in Melbourne. They have. I think they've had 40 points or more than 40 points on Parramatta in New Zealand prior to half time. They've scored, I think, in the first half of games 114 points or 116 points in 5 games. So they average 23 points a half. So, but again, it's not like we didn't expect this. Like Steph and Liero made some clangers with the ball last week. They cost Melbourne the game. They played extra time. And I want you to go into the draw. But if I just look at this last week, Adel, we had an 8-day preparation, or 8 days to get ready for the game. Melbourne had 7 days and a Golden Point game. So we had the extra day. We knew Melbourne were going to be up for it after a loss. They don't lose 2 in a row. They had, I don't know who the players were, but they had 2 players having milestone games as well. And if you look at our record since 2018, prior to yesterday, every time we've gone for 3 wins in a row, we're none out of 18. Like that's 0%. And now none out of 19. I just won't cop that we weren't good enough. We didn't expect it. I'll expand more when we talk about Benji with some of the stuff he said in the lead up in the Coaching Insider. And I watched back today how the hour show they have before the kickoff. I watched a bit of that with Cronk and Anasta, and where they interview all the coaches and the captains, what have you. But please expand on the draw and what are you talking about, the draw we've had so far, or what we've got to face in the future?
No, the draw we've had so far. But go back to your point,
go for it.
I think what you're saying is 100% sort of my point is Yeah, they haven't been the world beaters, and they've, at home they've been destructive earlier. Then they've had these situations where they've lost games where they've been in front. To me, that accumulates into Craig Bellamy would have had this team primed this week. It would have been, okay, enough is enough after last week. We've seen the scenes in the sheds with Steph and Liero. That would have been line in the sand for Melbourne. You want to talk about our preparation? I could only imagine what theirs was like this week. At home, comfortable, back in front of their crowd, Sunday afternoon. They love Sunday afternoon playing at Amy Park. We're talking about the best team in the competition. Like, there's only two teams that could do that to you, maybe three. I've worked it out. Like, Penrith won't do that to you. It's Melbourne, it's the Broncos at their absolute best, and it's probably Manly are the type of teams that can put those scores on teams where they just get hot and you just sort of can't stop them. But
Can I stop you there for one second, Adel?
Yeah, go.
Sorry, I was just going to. You mentioned the other two teams that you think could towel us up, Brisbane and Manly. Would it be fair to say of the prior games to Melbourne that the only game we genuinely expected to lose was Brisbane? Is that a fair thing to say? Like, when I say expected, like, we thought we were a chance of winning the other games, but we're going to Brisbane in Brisbane, knowing how they had started the season. It's
really.
Probably a game where you think.
I don't think so. I think
if
you watch the first half, in that game, Rob, we didn't look like we were that team. I think the start of the second half killed us.
Yeah. But my point is, since that game, Brisbane have lost 4 out of 5 games. Now, what happens if Melbourne go out on to lose, for example, 3 of the next 4 games? My point is, we have this underdog mentality, this subordinate mentality, like, oh, well, we're going to Brisbane on a Sunday afternoon, dry conditions, like, we can't compete with that. They're missing their most important player, Harry Grant. They're missing our Appy Coruscant, and they still put 64 points on us. We were not prepared for this game, Adel, whether it's fatigue, whether it's the travel, whatever. But anyway, you go on with what you want to say. I just wanted to mention
first of all, I disagree with the Jerome Hughes is their most important player. Absolutely no doubt about it. Look, if you look back at the game, it was Hughes and it was Pappenhausen that carved us up. So it's not like it was their fringies. But again, like, and I get it that we are a supporter base and we are a club that is scarred over the last 3 years. Like, we're the damaged goods at the moment. Like, everything is very sensitive to us. And, how many times this year have we had situations where we felt like the next week is a must-win game? So I get it and I understand it. But I'll tell you what, look at the Broncos. Look at their roster. Look at the position they're in. Look at the Roosters. Look at their roster. Look at the position they're in. I don't know. You could probably talk about another teams. I will say this. I'm going to go to this draw. So I sat down today and I had a look at the draw.
Yeah.
And there is 3 teams. Sorry, I apologize. There is 5 teams that have travelled for 5 games out of the first 10 rounds this year. 5 teams. 4 of those teams have had a bye in that time. The other team is the West Tigers, who have gone 10 rounds, week in, week out, and have played 5 games where they've had to travel. Now, everybody's sitting at home thinking, what's your professional footballers? It takes its toll, I promise you. Okay, so, and this is not excuses, this is reasons. These are not excuses. I'm going to give you some insights. The Bulldogs did not travel for the first 7 rounds, and they had a bye in those first 7 rounds. The last 3 games they've had to travel, they lost to Broncos. Okay, the Dolphins, who live in a one-town city, in a city that's only got 3 teams, that's if you include the Titans, have only had to travel 3 times. Parramatta have only had to travel 3 times, and they've had to bye. The Warriors have had to travel only 4 times. This is a team in another country, and they've had to bye in between that. Now, they did travel to Vegas, which I haven't counted, but they had a week off after Vegas. So they've actually had 2 byes. The Cowboys live in a city away from everybody. They've had to travel the same amount of us, but they've also had a bye. Is this an excuse? No, it's a reason. And why I say it's a reason is because on the back end of this, in round 10, after all this, to me, My educated eye tells me, Rob, they were fatigued. They maybe never knew it. Potentially, we don't know what's going on the inside. They looked fatigued. Now, I will say this, and I encourage everybody to go back and watch this. 53rd minute of the game, Jerome Hughes makes a break up the middle, and he's got Pappenhausen in support. He's got far longer in support on the other side. The scoreline is 46-0. I don't know whether I should share this or I should ask everybody to go and watch it. We have something like 7 jerseys chasing. And then at the end of it, it's Brent Naden, Jerome Luai, Taruva, and Jareen Buller are there. Now, I'm not surprised that Tito and Jerome are there. Buller's the fullback. And you know what? I'm going to give Naden credit for getting there. Okay. Falonga makes a mistake. He drops the ball because we get there and we make the tackle. That, to me, is a really important video to show the squad about standards. At 46-0, you make choices. We could have just let them score. I mean, did it really matter? 46, 56, 64, 70? Like, who really cares? But those are the efforts that, to me, you can almost focus on and you can really look into. But there are only minor efforts that happen in the game. I agree with you 100% around Terrell May. Okay, and I know you've been making the argument about him being blown out. But my counter argument to you, Rob, is this. If Terrell May doesn't play the minutes he's played this year, we are not 5-5.
I agree with that too. There's no doubt about that.
So this is where we're sort of sitting there and going, what do you do? Where potentially Benji has to do now, and I'm going there because we already know that Terrell May wants to play those minutes, and he gets upset when he gets taken off. I'm going to Benji. I'm going to Terrell May if I'm Benji and going, mate, we need to look after you a little bit now. I reckon my eye tells me you may not have felt it. My eye tells me on the weekend you were tired. Okay, you were tired. Now, the other thing is we're playing the Melbourne Storm. Okay, and I'm just giving as much information as I can for everybody. On the weekend, the Melbourne Storm attacked a weakness they found that has been found in us the last couple of weeks, and that is our right edge. And it does not matter who's right centre. I think it's more about who our right half is and our right back rower. So, to give you an example, the previous week, the right centre, whoever that was, whether it was Bird or Naden, the right half,
Naden.
which is Galvin, it was both because Bird come on the last whatever it was.
Oh yeah, of course, so 32 minutes he came on. 32 minutes left.
And Seyfarth, right? So the Dragons, those 3 players made 79 tackles against the Dragons. The left side of Samuela, Jerome, and Dewey made 49 tackles. So that's probably 66% of the tackles were made by our right edge. This is the diligence of the Melbourne Storm. On the weekend, our right edge made 97 tackles compared to 37 on our left edge. So my conclusion is, and if you go watch it, and I feel a little bit sorry for him, because this is what happens when you're an 19-year-old kid. The Melbourne Storm played all their attack either at Lachie Galvin or played off the back of something going at Lachie Galvin. That's the target. The Dragons did it last week. It's coming. There's more coming his way. Okay, and you'll see it in all the best teams in the competition. The great halves have to make a lot of tackles, and he's going to have to start making a lot of tackles because teams are realizing. And again, I know a lot of people were critical of Galvin's performance on the weekend, which is understandable, but this is the first grade you got to get used to, Lachlan. You have to make 28 tackles as a right half on the weekend. I don't think he would have made 28 tackles in a game in a long, long time, until back to when he was playing in the back row in Harold Matts. So this is a new level of the game where scouting is done on players and you can sort of target and understand who to go at and where the weaknesses are in teams. The Melbourne Storm went all in on our right edge. And that doesn't necessarily mean that that's where they're attacking. It's, it could be just knock the door down as much as you can on that left edge, and it crumbles our defensive line, and then all of a sudden space gets created elsewhere on the field. That's what happens. And those numbers don't lie. 97 on the right to 37 on the left. So there's some
In terms
information
of
there.
in terms, very good information. In terms of the 80 minutes, like from from the kickoff to the full-time hooter, is there anything else you want to touch on before we talk about some of the players in the game and the good players, perhaps, and the couple of good players? I think we both agree on the good players, but perhaps some of the poorer performers and what they might have done wrong technically. Like we're trying to take the emotion out of it and just look at it through your coach's lens. But any parts of the game you want to talk about before we mention the players?
Yeah, it's tough because, let's mention the players because that's probably the next step.
Okay, who would you like to talk about? Well, do you want to touch on? Okay, let me ask you. I thought Galvin's last tackle options and some of his attacking options in the first half looked like a guy that could just try and go for a try or go for that Hail Mary play every single time, and he didn't have, what's the right term? He just needed to rein it in occasionally and play a little bit more conservatively, maybe build up some pressure. I just think he took a lot of wrong options and a lot of who cares options. Like, I'm going to do what I want to do, and if it comes off, I'll look great, and if it doesn't, who gives a stuff? And I just think Benji needs himself to say to Lockie, mate, you just can't go for the big play every time. Sometimes you just got to go the simple play, let it happen, and then pick your moments. I feel like he's trying to make every moment a big moment, and it really showed in the first half. I don't think it showed in the second half, Adel, because we really didn't get much ball. But just give me your thoughts on Adel, and if what I'm saying to you, bears any fruit with you.
Yeah, I think Galvin playing like a 19-year-old kid. That's, I've said that from day dot when it comes to his footballing ability. It is what it is. It's hard because you're not on the inside. You don't know the conversations that are being had. You don't know what his attitude is at the moment. Okay, and for us as fans, well, it's easy to surmise that, well, he's a guy that's already told us doesn't want to be with us. So, is he playing for himself? Is he just doing things and not listening and all that sort of stuff, which I get and I understand, but we don't know what the truth actually is. What we've come to learn from our players is they're not going to accept that. So if that was the case, well, the accountability would be held, I'd like to think. I also know Benji enough to know that I don't think Benji will sugarcoat anything. If he thinks he needs to say something, he'll be saying it to the players. He'll be saying it to whoever it is, Galvin, Jerome, Uppy, it does not matter. So, I don't know is my answer. Do I think his performance has been good? No, I don't. I don't think he's been playing well. He's come up with those little bits of individual brilliance, but like I said to you at the start of the year, this is what you're going to get out of a 19-year-old kid, This is the part that really disappointed me around his decision and what he's done and how he's gone about it is he's earned nothing in the game besides having the same sort of year that Jareem had in his first year. It was a really good first year, and I'd say Jareem's first year was better than Lockie's first year, but I'm not, there's probably bigger issues than him, to be honest.
I want to talk about our Origin hopefuls. In particular, I know you've touched on Terrell May, but I want you to talk about Terrell May a little bit more. Has Terrell May lost his potential spot in the Blues team now? I want to talk about Appy as well, because I think there's a lot of similarities there, Adel. I personally believe Appy has given us 10 out of 10 performances in 2022 and 2023. He set a standard so high that it's unrealistic to expect that standard every week. But again, I'm taking the emotion out of it. I look back to his last year at Penrith when he came off the bench, was playing something between 35 and 50 minutes a game there, to getting pretty much flogged at the West Tigers and playing long minutes. And I'm just starting to see whether Appy's getting a little bit older or a little bit slower or whatever. I'm just starting to see a bloke that just looks a little bit cooked. And I know he gives his all. I know he loves his club. I'm not bagging him in any way. I'm just trying to say I think all the minutes he played the last couple of years are biting us now. And this is what I fear with Terrell May. I don't know what sort of Terrell May we're going to get next year and the year after. And with Terrell May, Adel, my analogy, whatever line of work you're in, if you're used to working 8-hour days, for a year, and then suddenly you're working 12-hour days, I don't care what industry you're in, there's going to be a little bit of focus missing. You're not going to be as alert as you are all the time and the like. Terrell May averaged 43, 44 minutes a game last year. The only big minutes he put for the Roosters were in the Origin period where he started in all those games, and I think he did 68, 73 and 80 minutes in those games. But now he's gone to averaging over 70 minutes a game. So you go from mid-40s to, you know, in the 70s, suddenly you're averaging over 50% more per game from what you're used to in the previous year. I'm no, you know, health expert or doctor or high performance bloke or anything, but just having watched footy for a long time, it's going to catch up with him, mate. He's going to go from being elite, having some punch, to a bloke like when he did the first hit up against St George, gets pushed back 10 metres because he's just losing a bit of that power, a bit of that. He's worn out. He's given his all for the club. I get all that, but we need to look after him. I don't care if Terrell May's got the shits and says, Coach, why did you take me off? We need to look after him, mate. Otherwise, he's going to be absolute damaged goods in future years. I'm sorry I've gone on a bit too much, but talk to me about Terrell. Talk to me about Appy, because then I want to get onto the positive one. I think Jerome Luai was actually really good yesterday, and I know people are still critical of him. I thought he was brilliant. But tell me about all three of those blokes and their chances of getting picked for Origin.
Yeah, look, it's a hard one with Origin. You know, I don't.
But what about for us? What about for us in terms of what they're doing for us?
Look, I think Terrell May is Terrell May. Like, I think we understand what he is. Like I said to you, I think he looked fatigued on the weekend. Uppy, I'm not sure. I mean, he hasn't had the best start of the season. Tough one in his regard. Like, I don't think Terrell May. So I'm of the opinion with Origin, I don't think Terrell May or Uppy should get picked, and that's because I think New South Wales should go with the incumbents. But that's where I think Jerome should be picked. Okay, that's my theory on it. Like, why even change the series? You know, besides Latrell coming back in, I can't see anyone else getting picked, to be honest. But yeah, let them do whatever they want. It's Laurie Daly. We've seen in the past Laurie Daly has his weird ways of doing things, so they'll do that. I don't think Terrell May was ever going to get picked. That's my opinion. I actually don't think he's ever going to pick him. But that's just my opinion. You know, I've always had an opinion. I don't think Laurie Daly likes the West Tigers. He never picked Tigers players when he was there. You know, whatever, right? So leave that on its own. For us, I think out of the three up, he's the one that's, you know, suffering the most when we're not playing well. That's what I think. I think he's being, especially when we're getting rolled, he's being isolated at times defensively. Look, potentially, you know, I think I've said this previously, you know, potentially you look at starting someone else off the bench, and I'm going to go to this in a little bit. I'd actually flip him, Rob. I'd throw Talon de Silva back to reserve grade. And I would find another way to put someone else in. And I don't know if it's Tristan Hope. I don't know if he's the answer. But somebody else to start the first 20 minutes of games for us. And maybe that's someone who's at another club that's sitting in reserve grade at the moment, who's a guy that played 150 first grade games and, you know, sort of looking for an opportunity. I don't know. But get someone in to sort of take away those tough 25 minutes of the game early for us and manage Uppy through the back end of the year. Like, I don't know if that's what the solution is, but I do agree with that. I wasn't impressed with Talon at all on the weekend. I thought he played like somebody who was trying to just do things for the sake of doing them. I think he was taking shortcuts. Twice he gave away 60 goals where he just got up and just kept his hand on the ball. There was a bit of ill discipline in his game on the weekend, which to me, you know, I'm a little bit old school. You know, when you're a young kid coming through, I want you to earn the right to do a few of those little niggly things, and I don't think he did that. In regards to the boys, Jerome Luai was really good. He didn't stop competing. You know, and I've said this before about, you know, missing tackles and all that sort of stuff, like Steph ran over him. You know, what do you expect the small half to do when a front rower's running at you and you're isolated? No half in the comp is going to tackle anyone. When you're isolated on your own, you've got nobody within 3 or 4 meters either side. It's a one-on-one tackle. You're not going to make it. So, yeah, I can't complain about Luai at all. I thought he was really good on the weekend.
I noticed, again, could you correct me if I'm wrong, generally when we do these little backline shifts and Luai gets the ball first, he has a tendency to crab across field quite regularly. Yesterday was different. I thought he straightened the attack up really well. Like when he did get the ball, it's the first time I've seen him go north-south straight into the line and try and make a little bit more space. Did you notice that as well?
Yeah, and I'll tell you what I did notice early in the game is we ran a little bit of Penrith shape. So what Penrith like to do is they'll shift the ball from one side to the other, and they'll go block for block for block, and they just do it to strip numbers. We have not done that ever. Penrith do it consistently, and there was even times where Uppy did not get a dummy half, would stay in the middle of the field, and then he'd become one of the ball players. So I think that the positive of of that game was we finally figured out that we need to evolve our attack, and our attack is going to be there. The next part is figuring out our defence. Okay, that's to me what the next part needs to be. And our first up contact, the freshen up has got to be able to help us. Now, I've while we're talking, Rob, I've come up with a solution for us,
Okay,
and I know
maybe
we've
not.
got.
You want
Honestly,
Benji's number?
I've got it. No, you know what I'd do? I'd go to the Bulldogs and try to get Jake Turpin for the rest of the year. You know, I think you need someone like that who's an experienced first grader, and the more of those guys you get, and you bring him in and you give him another year next year, because at the end of the day, we're going to have to make a decision in 2020, the end of 2026 in regards to talent and in regards to Uppy. So it's really important. But mate, at the end of the day, like if Talon De Silva doesn't want to sit in reserve grade till he's 20 or 21, I turn around and say, well, mate, this is Harry Grant, and he come to us at 20, and he got loaned by the Melbourne Storm. So if you think you're better than Harry Grant, we'll go find another club. You know, we've got Jared Hayward sitting in the background. So that's my theory in the short term. I think that's what we need, someone like that. And the way you do it is if you go to Turpin, which you can talk to him now, and I'm just throwing a name out there because I just looked at the New South Wales team list, but he's someone that's perfect. You go to Turpin, you say, you know, we'll give you this year and next year. His management goes to the Bulldogs and says, look, he's got an opportunity for next year. You know, are you going to stand in his way or are you going to let him, you know, but they only want him if he goes now. I'll probably release him and we'll probably get to have him because the Bulldogs don't need him really. But that's sort of the things that the club should be doing. And don't get me wrong, you see a lot of that stuff coming close to June 30. Teams will start making moves and we might be one of those clubs where we can benefit from something in the short term, but also in the long term in regards to the rebuild around our squad. And I would like to touch on that in a second. But, yeah, Luai tick for me.
Okay, and there's one more player you're going to give a tick to, I'm sure, because I heard your comments about it, and I said the same thing during the live broadcast. So let's have a little bit of a positive before I finish with a negative. I think was a negative selection, but talk to me about Jareen Buller.
I can't complain about Jareen Buller. I did watch back your the live thing on Facebook, Rob, and mate,
Why?
I don't know who this guy. I had a squeeze through it, but I did, and the first thing I seen was a comment, and it was like 3 comments from one. I don't know if he's a Tigers fan, but whoever it was, just ripping into Buller. Whoever you are, leave our club. We don't need you, and you got problems, so you get checked. With all due respect, yeah, mate, he's someone that competes. You can make errors. You're a rugby league player. You're allowed to make errors. You're allowed to miss tackles, but when you compete for 80 minutes straight, like he does every single week, you have got a long future in this game. And again, he's still 21 years old?
Yeah,
pretty sure. Right. He's our most important player at the moment.
All right, and I want to talk about this person because I think it'll lead us into talking about Benji and talking about our roster, our current roster, and you know some of the frailties in that roster. And I'm not picking on Charlie Staines. Okay, I thought in terms of running the ball, I thought he ran with great vigor. He made a couple of good runs, like some 15-meter plus runs, tries really hard. He's not a centre. He was shown up defensively in the centres. I know he had mates there, but my issue, Adel, is we've got a top 30 squad, and you've got players. I'm not saying they're up to it, but you've got specialist centres in the club like Fata'ape, like Folletti, like Sakuru, even if you want to go back further. And Benji chose to put a winger at centre, and I'm trying to think of What was his logic there? Like, was he worried we were going to lose by 50? We lost by 64 anyway. If I'm any of those players and I see my coach putting someone who's a winger in the centres, I'm thinking, well, what have I got to do to get a spot here? Given Olam's left the club, given Toa's out injured, Adam's only shifted really properly to the centres the last couple of years. He was basically a half and a fullback for us. I don't understand the selection of that at all. And it didn't work. And I think that's got to come back to Benji. And if Benji is right in putting Staines there for whatever reason, then if I'm those blokes, I just realise my career's over at the Tigers. Like, I'm not good and I need to leave, because if I can't get a gig ahead of, Charlie Staines, then there's something wrong with me as a centre.
Well, does that mean that Casey and Jesse McLean at Penrith think the same thing that Luke Garner's playing in the centres? Like, Kurt Capewell's been playing in the centres for the Warriors, and they've got young kids. Like, those guys
I
need to
think
get
there's
better.
a difference with McLean, though. I think there's a big difference with McLean, Adel, because if you want me to touch on McLean, I forget it. I think it's Casey McLean, the one that's been playing in the centres still a couple of weeks ago. Again, I'm just a fan watching the game on TV. He's a really talented player who is a massive hog. He cost them the game against Newcastle at Combank when he refused to pass the ball out to Tom Jenkins. He bombed another try the same way a week later. And funny enough, and I hated how the rugby league gods rewarded him for this. I don't remember who the team was. He threw a dummy again to someone else selfishly, but this time he got over the line and he got up all happy with himself like, I'm a hero. And I'm thinking, mate, you cost your team 2 points against Newcastle, and you would have won.
But hang on, Rob. But that's individual. But my point is, your point is, these guys should think the NRL future is over. Well, let's be honest. Solomone Fatape has been in New South Wales, the Queensland Cup all these years. Like, don't point at the coach if you're not good enough to play first grade. Josh Folletti and Fatape. I mean, these are guys that all they have to do is call the club. They're both off contract. They'll have to, if someone else wants you. Like, I had this issue when we were at NRLW. Like, players would complain about things, and I'm sitting there going, well, hang on, we're the only club giving you an opportunity. So if you want to be better, train better. When you get your opportunity, take it. Don't be what those players have been.
It's a double-edged sword, because I'm not saying that. Well, I am saying Benji's wrong for picking a winger at centre, but I also understand Benji's dilemma.
Who would you have picked? Who would you have picked?
Out of what was available there, it's the best of the absolute worst options. Fata Ape, who is a terrible defender, but unfortunately,
go.
Hear me out. Yeah, as bad a defender as he is, and we saw that in the first game against Newcastle. As bad as a defender as he is, he's better than Naden in terms of defence. He's better than Folletti, and he can attack. But and it's a really poor choice. But what I'm trying to allude to is, it's not just, well, why did Benji go with a winger? I think Benji went with a winger. I'm kind of going to answer my own question here. Benji went with an unproven person at centre because our depth in our top 30 is garbage. It's garbage, mate. And that's not, you want to call me emotional or whatever. I'm not being emotional, mate. Benji's got 22 players basically that he's working with. And I don't know if you've got the squad in front of you, but there's 7 or 8 blokes that he's never going to consider and never going to put in there. Some of them aren't even in Cup or have only just got back in Cup, the likes of Matamua and what have you. We've got guys in that top 30 that do not belong there, mate. So as you told me earlier today privately, this roster can't be fixed in one season. We've had a really good off-season in what we've brought to the club, but this roster is going to take another year, probably 2 or 3 years to get through. And I want to ask your thoughts too, like who's coming from below Adel that will be ready in a year or two? I'm not saying, like, I know there's your Haywoods and whatever.
Nobody. So, we're not. Our youngsters that are supposed to come through are currently playing. Luke's one. Galvin, De Silva. These guys, they're that crop. Like, they're those guys. And people talk about our winning Harold Matts squad, right? It doesn't matter who you are. Like, we've won 1 Harold Matts. There's clubs out there that won 2 and 3. Those clubs are still only getting like 3 or 4 out of those squads to go on to NRL. Like, you can't think because you win 1 Harold Matts comp that whole squad's going to become a first grade team. Like, Penrith never did that. Penrith was year after year after year after year. It was, every year they'd get 2 and 3, and then 2 and 3 from the following age group, and then a couple more from the year after that. So it's not going to happen overnight. The problem we've got is, we don't and I don't understand it. I've never understood the fact that we try to force people from our club, just because someone's a junior, it doesn't mean that they should play NRL. I told you in a private conversation, and I don't mean any disrespect to this guy, but I coached against Alex Afarth when he was playing SG ball for Balmain. I could not believe he kept going through the ranks, and I'm not being disrespectful. I know it sounds it, but it made no sense to me that, because obviously, I was with another club and we're coaching against Balmain, so I obviously had keen interest in who the guys coming through the ranks were, and I never understood it. I genuinely never understood how he kept progressing. The talent in those age groups was ridiculous from other clubs, but they kept him because I think it was our junior. So it's almost like this thing. We've got this notion that we're a development club. It's the biggest garbage you'll ever hear in your life. Development club, no, we're a club that should be winning. We're not a development club. We've tried being a development club. The development club has made no finals in, what is it now, Rob? 14 years?
14 years, 2011.
So let's stop being a development club. Why don't we stop that for a little bit? Let's do our job properly. Okay. Let's develop players through the right years. Let's strengthen our Jersey Flegg and New South Wales Cup programs. Okay, let's strengthen that first. Oh, I'm going to have a rip. Oh, no, I'm not going to say this. There's one thing I was going to say there, but I won't say that. I'm just very careful with what I say, certain things. But I think we should improve that. But to me, the challenge, and we can expand on it now, is I did a bit of work after our conversation today. I did a little bit of work, and I sort of put my cap on, because I've done this sort of work and I understand how it works. We've got 7 players off contract at the end of this year. We've then got a further. Let me just move this. Sorry, you guys just lost me. We've got a further 10 players at the end of next year. So in the next 24 months, we've got 17 players coming off contract. Now, I'll start with this year. This year, we've got 7, and to me, all 7 will not be renewed. They are Brandon Tumeth, Charlie Staines, Brent Naden, Justin Matamua, Josh Fellerty, Solomone Fataape, and the last one's a tough one to say, but I will say it, is Adam Dewey. Okay, I believe all 7 of them will not be renewed. Now, what's my theory on this in regards to who we target? Well, it's got to be a balance of people. And I know everybody out there wants the sexy signings. We want to sign the sexy players, the ones who are going to come to our game and influence winning football games immediately. Your Luais, your Uppies, these sort of guys. That's not how it works. What we need to do is turn those 7 spots into guys who are genuinely going to play first grade and are going to be genuine options to be first grade depth. Second to that, we need to sign guys who are potentially right on the brink at other clubs, who are only not playing first grade, but have played a lot of New South Wales Cup and Flag because they're in really good systems. Would you like me to throw some names at you, Rob?
Okay, sure.
Okay, this is my list. Billy Burns. Again, and we're targeting specific players, right? Someone who actually got carved up against us the other week, and we thought he got hooked, but he didn't get hooked. He was actually injured. Is Mawani Hiroti from the Sharks.
Yep.
Again, a centre. But that's a guy that's played, 60, 70 New South Wales Cup games. So this is the sort of difference I'm talking about. Someone like Mark Nichols from the Dolphins off contract. Experience, good culture, good character. Wayne Bennett's taken him everywhere he went. There's got to be a tick there. I'm not talking about signing this guy to be our starting front rower and kill it for us, but back into his career, he's 35 years old. He's going to have a good impact on our squad. He can fill a role. Corey Jensen, the Brisbane Broncos. Again, sort of right on the brink of a first grader. If he plays Cup, you're not going to spend a lot of money on him, but he can do a job and play first grade. Harley Smith-Shields, a guy that's had injuries, but was a very talented centre. The guy I showed you a couple of weeks ago, Valu Lasardi, who's Christian Pierre's partner. he's gone from Penrith to Melbourne Storm. If those two clubs want you, but he sort of can't break it because they've got, their squads are so talented with
elite.
back rowers. Viliami Vialia, a centre from the North Queensland Cowboys. These are guys that are right on the brink, but are first graders. And then the other one I will go to is a young kid called Harrison Hassett, who is from the Penrith Panthers. He's a back rower. Do you know who he is, Rob?
I'm smiling because he seems to be a bit of a running topic of conversation in our West Tigers Life Patreon Discord chat. So, yeah, I've seen the name. I don't know anything about him. So fill me in on him.
Well, he's a back rower at Penrith.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you the trump card. He's managed by Benji's manager.
Okay.
So that's my target. But then on top of that, and this is where you can sort of sit there and you've got to play the game as an NRL club. And then you've got to look at the following year, which in most cases, when we learned that and we did that really well with Jerome, is sometimes it's not about the players that are off contract. This year, it's about what's happening ahead. And this is where you need to plan. But, I've come up with a list already of players that in 2026 are off contract who we've got to target. And you're right, we've got to rebuild this roster from scratch. I've come up with Josh Curran, Kaeli Rowe, Connolly Lemuelu, Ruben Garrick, Scott Sorensen, and the other one was a young man called Kai O'Donnell from the North Queensland Cowboys. Because at the end of next year, Rob, we've got Jack Bird, Sione Fainu, Talon De Silva, Lachlan Galvin, who we already know is gone, Api Coruscant, Kit Laulili, Luke Laulili, Solomoni Sukuru, Jarrell Skelton, Tony Suka, and Stafford Toa off contract.
Wow.
So there is 10 players off contract there. To me, 5 of them are staying. You're renewing Sione to me. Luke, you're renewing. Jarrell, you're making sure you keep now. And Stafford Toa. And then the other one is, depending on how it works, it's either Uppy will play on or Talon will be re-signed. If Uppy plays on, Talon's not re-signing. Which, to me, it's whatever that is. So if you work that out, that means there's 12 roster spots in the next 24 months up for grabs for us. Who we sign for those 12 spots has got to be a balance of 5 or 6 guys that we need to be in our top 17 every week. And then the others have got to be guys that are going to be up to the task of being able to fill a role for us when needed. And they've got to provide us depth in our squad. And all of those names that I've just provided you, I think are guys that have proven they can play first grade.
I'll throw another one at you. I'll throw another one at you. I don't know when he's off contract, but I don't know why he doesn't get the minutes at the Dolphins. I like what I see in Josh Kerr. He's actually a pretty decent prop.
My concern with Josh Kerr is he came out a couple of weeks ago, and I did see him on there. That's why I went with Mark Nichols. Mark Nichols, I know, would want to come back to Sydney. Josh Kerr's openly come out and said that my next contract, I'm getting the most money I can get. So I'd say he'd be going to the English Super League. Because I'll tell you now, the other one I thought of, and this is going to sound crazy, was Josh Papali'i.
Wow.
Because I thought someone like, I know Josh wants to play on. I think he's going to go to the English Super League because he's probably going to get more money there. But I also think that's because he thinks he won't get a contract here. But guys like Petro Civoniceva did at the back end of their career. We're talking about origin class who's going to have a good impact on the squad. So, why not? Why wouldn't if I'm clubs, I'm asking all these questions. The other guy, Rob, to me, and I don't know whether he's already been re-signed, but I am potentially looking at him, I'm going to get this right, I promise you, is Mark Nawanga Witawase.
No chance of getting him, bro. We're no chance of getting him. The Roosters love him.
But they do, but you know what? The Roosters are about to go on a spree. So, but again, if I told you 12 months ago, wouldn't have a chance of getting Jerome Luai. So you've just, we've got to be aggressive in the market. We've got to be so aggressive. You asked me earlier today, who do we have coming through the ranks? We've got Hamasi Makasini. We've got Jared Hayward. My opinion on Jared Hayward is so high. If you're sitting in a recruitment meeting, I'm going with Jared Hayward over Talon De Silva.
Well, I think that guy whose name you pronounced really well, I think he's there to stay because the Roosters are trying to ship off Dom Young. Literally as we speak, I think they'll be announcing in the next couple of days that he's gone back to Newcastle. Mate, I want to say a few sentences about Benji Marshall in terms of what we did this week. I think Benji's done a great job this year, especially now that we've discussed our current roster and seeing how thin it is. It actually makes winning 5 out of 10 games fantastic. And I think in all previous 9 games prior to yesterday, we've been in the game and we've shown a resilience that we really haven't seen from a Tigers team consistently, which is why yesterday was so disappointing. And just on a side note, Adel, there were 8 games on the weekend. 7 of them were in the balance with 20 minutes left, except one game. That was ours. I mean, even the other biggest scoreline was Cronulla and Manly, and that was 14 all with about 15 to 20 minutes left before that blew out the 30 to 14. But look, my issue with Benji, and again, perhaps it is the fatigue, Adel. Perhaps we are gassed, and if we are gassed, that doesn't look good for Campbelltown this week. But we'll discuss that shortly. But if Benji said at the presser after St George, yeah, we won, but I'm not happy with it. We've got to meet standards. We've got to do this. The one thing I found alarming, and again, I guess it's how you comprehend it, he said in the Coaching Insider and again in the pre-game show on Foxtel yesterday, we've got nothing to lose. Now, I took that nothing to lose, meaning like we're playing Melbourne in Melbourne after a bounce back, dry conditions. We're really, at best, a puncher's hope of winning. I think we lost everything yesterday. I think we lost 2 points. I think we lost credibility as a football team for everything we've worked on this year. I think we lost a lot of respect. I think we're going to have no players in Origin. I don't think Jerome Luai is going to get picked when he should get picked. I think we're looking now like a club that if you come to our club, you're not going to play rep footy, which really annoys me in terms of trying to attract players. I think he knew what we were prepared to get. He also said things like in the Coaching Insider, we've prepared for us. We're not concerned about what Melbourne do. As a coach, I think you've got to worry about both teams. You worry about your own stuff. You've got to worry about what Melbourne are going to throw at you because it looked like we've done no homework on Melbourne. And again, I'm being critical of this preparation for this coaching performance. And again, Adel, it reminds me of Spoon Bowl. It absolutely reminds me of Spoon Bowl. And we had a similar score put on us, although we did score a few points. Am I being overly critical? I'm not being emotional. I'm just calling how I saw the time from post-game St George to yesterday. I'm not criticising anything he's done previously. If you told any of our supporters we're going to win 5 out of 10 games pre-season, we'd all be doing backflips because we're in the middle of the comp. We've got a chance of playing finals. We're right up there. We're sitting 10th, I think, on for and against, only because of the shellacking, or we would have been sitting 9th. Am I being unfair? Did Benji get this preparation right? Because, I mean, Blind Freddie can tell you 64-0 says he got it wrong. What's he done wrong? What do you think he's done wrong? We're not in the inside, but talk to me. What went wrong? It seems like every time he says we've got nothing to lose, we get hammered.
Let's say for argument's sake, you are right. Okay, let's say for
generally I am, but I hear what you're saying.
No, let's just say for argument's sake, you are right.
I jest. Yeah.
No, I understand. Okay. I don't have a problem with him getting things wrong. And I know that for me it's personal and I'm going to be defensive. Okay, I get that. But even if I'm not putting that aside. Michael Maguire is coaching the Brisbane Broncos with the squad that he's got, and they're not below us on the ladder. I think they're still above us. They're equal with us on the ladder. Okay, with that squad. Look at Manly's squad. They have lost. They've actually won. They're above us on the ladder, but they've only won 4 games. We've won 5. The Roosters have won 1 less game than us. That's Trent Robinson's their coach. You said before 7 games on the weekend, Rob. 7 teams are below us on the table. So as you said, he's doing a lot right. I believe Benji's the one coach in this competition that should be allowed to be given passes on whatever he says in press conferences, whatever he says pre-game. And I'm not saying this emotionally as a friend. I'm saying this openly as a guy that's watching a team that's being rebuilt from a club I love, going off the back of 3 wooden spoons. And we are in the position where we've got the privilege to be talking about them saying, you know what, we're in 10th spot and we're competing. Like, let's be honest, in the last 3 years at 64 nil, we're like, oh, it's just another loss. But we're in a privileged position at the moment where we're able to go, you know what, hang on, we've got an opportunity here. So this really can hurt. And you know what, now we're going to put the blowtorch on you, Benji. I get that. But he should be given a pass because he doesn't have the savviness of other coaches. I knew exactly what you were going to say to me then about what he said, we've got nothing to lose. Would I have said it? No, I wouldn't have said it. That's my honest opinion.
But he's not. Is that not Benji, an attitude, Adel? Is that not an attitude though that is defeatist?
It depends on your.
That's how I interpreted it. That's how I interpreted it. Do you interpret it that way?
No. Well, and I'm going to use the F word here for a sec, because sometimes and I apologise in advance. I'm going to use the F word. So if anyone doesn't want to hear a swear word, don't, because it's important I say it with this context. Sometimes when you are a team, and potentially he's seen what was coming, in the sense that he realised we were fatigued. He may have, and he just went to the boys and said, I know we're tired, because sometimes you can acknowledge these things. I know it's been a trip, and we've gone back-to-back away trips, and some of you boys are banged up, and there might be injuries, there might be this, and there might be some niggles. But you know what? Fuck it, we've got nothing to lose. Sometimes you can go with that. Okay, sometimes you can do that. Look, in American sports, mate, they write games off. Sometimes teams don't even turn up with their full squad. Like, if you weren't allowed to do it in the NRL, you almost could have done it on the weekend. So we don't know what exactly is going on because, if you want to talk about it, and I've already explained the draw, I can understand us being fatigued. We've had the hardest draw to start the year. Absolutely no doubt about it. We've had no bye. And on that 10th game off the back of week in, week out, with travelling 5 games, the equal of everybody else in the comp, all the other teams have had a bye, we have to play Melbourne in Melbourne off the back of what they just copped. No tougher game. So if I've turned up the training and I've got the captain's run, and it's happened, mate. I promise you, it happens as a coach. You turn up the captain's run and you're like, yeah, we're screwed here. We've got nothing. This bye can't, we've got to get through this week and try to reduce them because, like I said to you, you and I spoke about this. If I'm coach, the boys played Sunday, honestly, unless you're doing rehab, you're getting treatment, I would have given them the next couple of days off. I would have said, nobody come in, just go refresh, fill the tank up, come back Thursday. We'll have a big session Friday or Thursday, have another day off Friday, captain's run Saturday, let's hit the ground, let's go at the south. Because we don't need anything in regards to preparation physically this week. Football-wise, not physically. We need to actually find some juice in the tank. And sometimes you can go the other way. Instead of actually going, we've got to work harder, sometimes it's actually take the foot off a little bit as a coach and say, hey, chill. And I've done it, mate. Not at the highest level, obviously, but you've done it with the girls' teams. You've done it with the junior rep teams where you sort of say to them, guys, you know what? We're going to chill this week. We're going to do not much. You know what our football looks like. You know what our structures are. We'll plan. So we'll verbally plan and we'll show some plans and we'll do some video, but recuperate, get your bodies in check. I'm going to give you something to refuel. You give the club, you give the jersey, you give the fans something to come back with next week. And let's attack this game because, we've got 5 rounds of football coming up. There is 10 points up for grabs and we're guaranteed a 4 in the next 5 rounds. So let's attack these next 3 games we have to play with a bit of breaks in between. Let's put all our petrol into this because if we can somehow win 2 of these 3 games, well, that's 8 out of a possible 10 points. That takes us to 18 points, Rob.
I want to touch on the Galvin and the Luai situation in terms of the noise, for want of a better term. I'm sure you've seen some of the vlogs where you notice Lachlan Galvin and Talon De Silva sort of separating themselves from the player group and what have you. And I know it's just a look, but as a coach, given perhaps certain players may not like each other or not get on, are they capable of still being able to perform at the highest level with this team? Like, I think that the Cronulla game.
Can I interrupt you because I don't want to give this any credit credibility,
Sure.
right? Did you watch the whole vlog?
I skimmed through it as fast as I could. Yeah,
Okay.
pretty much.
I'll tell you why I give it no credibility in regards to some of the comments that have been made about it. There is a part of the vlog, because at the end of the day, we know that it was Jerome Luai and Tito was the one that did the real bad post. Tito and Lockie Galvin were communicating multiple times in those vlogs. There's no credibility to that, mate. At the end of the day, they're a football team. They're playing together. They're professional athletes. What are we complaining about? The fact that they may not like each other? Who would have thought Cameron Smith and Cooper Cronk, and once they ended from Melbourne, see how they ended, went different ways? These are professional athletes now. So I don't even want to give it the airtime or credibility, because to me that was targeted from people outside our club trying to attack our club in regard to things like the grown adult that was trying to approach players in their private time at an airport. Like, again, the context of all that, I've been around that. I've seen, with the NRLW girls when they travel and sort of people at the airport and how they approach them and how they go about things in their personal private space. So I'm not going to give that the time of day, to be honest.
If Galvin has a poor game this weekend against South and Latu Fainu is fit for the Cowboys game after the bye, do we see Lachlan Galvin in first grade, in your opinion? And I know you're hypothesising here, but I just want to ask your opinion, because I feel like the more we lose, the more this whole talk does blow up, Adel, whether you like to hear it or not, whether you want to give it air or not. I truly think it's going to get to a point where if Richo's going to put his foot down, he can still put his foot down, but Lockie will end up playing reserve grade if they feel that it's detrimental to the team. And
Look,
I'm not going to say Lockie didn't try. I thought Lockie tried on the weekend. I thought some tackles he was really heavily invested in. So I think there are moments he tries. I just think he's just got to be a bit more respectful with the ball when we've got the ball.
At the end of the day, you forfeited. I made myself clear when the whole thing went down. Like, I wouldn't have played him. And I know that that's not the popular opinion. I wouldn't have played him. But they've made that decision. Now you continue to go by the process of the decision you've made. At the end of the day, every week you pick a 17. If his form means he's our 5'8", well, he's our 5'8". If we lose and his performance is the same as his performance was last week, and Latu becomes available, well, then from a club perspective, you sit there and you go, well, Latu has done the right thing by us. He's bided his time on the bench. Do you then decide, okay, we're going all in on him? It becomes almost like a business decision. The short answer to you, Rob, is you judge it week in, week out. You don't. If they're going to write him off, they would have written him off by now. They're not going to write him off. As far as I am concerned, it looks like the club is going to go with him for at least the rest of this year, and they're not going to treat him like an outsider. So, yeah, it just becomes a form thing. And if his form is not up to it, you can justify it, because I think you forfeited your right of being given the opportunity to be left in first grade for the long term, because you're not going to be with us for the long term. So now for him, it's, well, mate, now it's week in, week out. You've got to prove yourself week in, week out to be in our best 17.
The deleted tweet by Jerome Luai's father last night. Before I ask your opinion on it, because I just want to say my little opinion is I don't think Jerome Luai is going anywhere. I think he's heavily invested in the club. I love what he's brought to the club. And the garbage about him going back to Penrith, even if by some stupid reason, or not stupid reason, that he just has a desire to go back to Penrith, I don't see Jerome Luai forfeiting 40 to 50% of his salary to go back to Penrith. But again, I think what his father put up there was really poor. I think it's going to put a lot of pressure on Luai every week, not in the sense of what he does on the field, but every time there's a presser, they're going to ask him about it. Are you going to take those clauses out? Are you going to do this? Are you going to do that? I think it's just unneeded, and it's going to keep going until November the 1st, and until he sort of exercises whatever options he's got on there. Give me your thoughts on that whole situation, mate. I know you're a big Jerome Luai fan.
Yeah, look, the situation is not as easy as he's just able to just go, I'm out. Okay, so it's not so much that. The other thing is, and this is, a lot of people talk about exit clauses. Jerome Luai's it's not like Dylan Brown where he's a lot like really young. This is probably Jerome Luai's last big contract. Now people talk about if we're losing. Well, if we're losing, the facts are your stocks go down. So if Jerome ever wanted to leave, well, it means he's going to take a pay cut to leave. Now, don't get me wrong. As a competitor, he may sort of sit there and go, well, yeah, I just can't deal with the losing. But also known as a family man. And if you're a family man, well, you're probably going to do what's best for his family. And if that means earning an extra $300,000 a year over 3 years and making extra, $900,000, if I'm his family, I know which option I want him to have. I don't really want to give this air, but I'm going to talk about it because it's important. I think it's a non-issue. Like I said, it's not as easy as him just turning around and just saying, I'm leaving. Plus, this is not to the end of 2026. Is the first part of his clause being able to be activated. So, yeah, there's a long way between now and then. If every time someone, next week, if his best mate puts something up, are we going to get the shits about it? Like, Jerome Luai is a grown man. He's not Lachlan Galvin at 19. He's a grown man who makes his own decisions. We've never heard of Luai's dad before. And to me, it was like, if it was still up there, I'd have a problem. But obviously, it's been seen, and he's been told to take it down by the only person I could think that could told him to take it down. So, mate, non-story. And I'm going to say this unapologetically. If anybody doesn't want to be at our club, I'm not talking about this situation in general, okay, no problems. If our player's got an exit clause in his contract for $1.2 million a year, you know what that means if he leaves? We can pay someone else $1.2 million that no one else can. And I'm not talking about Jerome because I'm like you, like it's a non-topic, but the mentality from us has got to be no matter what, like we can't get any lower than when we've been. 3 wooden spoons, only one way for us to go. So you've got to be with us. And Jerome's already said the words. Do you think Jerome Luai comes across as a man after saying I'm here for the long haul that's going to do what people are hoping he's going to do from the outside?
Absolutely not. He's not going to change his mind.
No. To me, these exit clauses is what he's earned. And don't take this to the bank, but from what I understand, it's all got to do with Benji. At the end of the day, if Jerome Luai, if Benji Marshall gets sacked this year, does Jerome Luai, not as someone who signed for the club for 5 years, not have the right to say, well, hang on, I came to the club, you sold me this vision with Benji Marshall as my coach, who was my childhood hero, who I looked up to, and then 1 year in, you've told him to piss off. I'm in for the long haul, so was he. So if you don't believe in him, well, that means you don't believe in me. He's got the right to have those clauses in his contract.
Fair enough. Mate, the final thing I want to talk to you about tonight is our game against South. Given we've both said that we're screaming out for the bye, that we're fatigued, we're exhausted, you tell me how Benji turns this around for Sunday.
Yeah, like I said to you, I'd hope they've freshened them up this week. I might try to get some information for us to find out if they have tomorrow. But yeah, that's what I'd like to think. And sometimes even freshening them up again, getting them in very light stuff. So their load is what you call a deload. So just basically very, very minimal stuff. Sometimes some SNCs and performance stuff like to go the other way. When you're tired, is to try to condition your body to get more Ks under you. That's the sports science thing. I've got no idea about that sort of stuff. You got to trust those people with that. This week is about pride. It's about will. It's the bounce back of getting beat by 64. Like they shouldn't, Uppy said it in the press conference, it should light a fire underneath our boys this week. We're at Campbelltown. There's motivation. We've played 2 games at Campbelltown. We've lost those 2 games. There is no bigger motivation than this week. We're coming up against the Rabbitohs, and let's say it as it is. You got to stop one player in their team. There's only one player that's going to beat you this week.
I'm on the same page, mate. I think he's the most dangerous player in rugby league. He can do things that no other player can do. And I love how these experts say, he comes in and out of games. I don't know if we should pick him for Origin or not. Every Origin performance he has is out of this world. Every time he's not there, we look like a different team. Although Bradman Best did an admirable job when he came in last year, but I mean, I think Latrell's got the strength of two Payne Haas's. That's how strong the man is. And then to kick that field goal in driving rain from 48, 49 metres the other night, the cover tackle he did on Mariner, the head-on tackle he did on Haas. Yeah, if we can stop him, if we can somehow keep the ball away from him, put him off his game. I mean, you know what he's going to do, Adel, but you just can't stop him when he's in the mood. So,
yeah, what you want to do with Latrell is you want to actually give him a lot of the ball, but you want to give it to him in parts where he doesn't want the ball. So, for example, when we're kicking this week, every kick needs to go down Latrell's throat. He's got to catch the ball. You got to do it in a case where you want him to catch it, and then he's got to make the effort, not catch it and then be able to pass to his winger, which he likes to do. Latrell's a Ferrari. He's not a V8. It's one of those ones that likes to do things. But, mate, the other thing I do with Latrell is I almost don't engage him in the game. I just leave him alone. I don't push him. I don't shove him. You almost want him to just, you give him a pat on the back. Hey,
don't
bro, how you
poke the
going?
bear.
You don't. You literally don't. Because he looks like a man on the mission at the moment.
Yeah.
Like the way he's playing, it's to me, he looks like he's a man on the mission. He's got Wayne as his coach. So he's going to be motivated enough. Don't motivate him anymore. And what you do is our attack needs to be, our defense, the instruction to Jareem this week is when you're setting our numbers in our defensive line, the first thing you look up is wherever Latrell is. That's where the numbers get set first. And then you challenge Bud Sullivan or who's their other half? I don't think Cody's back.
It's that big guy, Humphreys, Jamie Humphreys, whatever his name is.
You challenge those guys to beat you. You challenge them. You challenge Isaiah Tass. You challenge whoever their other centers are. Jai Arrow's playing in the back row. I don't think, is Keon injured or Keon? No, Keon's still playing.
No, he's there. He's there.
There's another danger player. So, but we should have enough in us this week to beat these guys. But what we know about South and the Wayne Bennett team, you're going to have to beat them. They're not going to beat themselves.
Yeah, look, I think Latrell's so dangerous, but not that it's much difference. I'd love us to sort of make Latrell come to our left side attack. I think that right arm fend he's got is just ridiculous. He's such a strong player.
He's naturally biased to our right edge, to our their left edge.
Yeah.
So mate, we've got to get that. We've got to get that sorted this week. I don't know. I don't think Stafford Towers is he available this week?
I think he should be named. I think, put it this way, I think the team knows, or the coaching staff know how desperate this game is, and that we've got to buy anyway. So I think he will play, given what we saw on the weekend and the week before against St George. I almost think we've got no choice unless he's unable to play, unless he's that bad. But I feel like if he's 51%, he's playing.
Would you like me to be critical of Benji, Rob, to make you feel good? Can I have
No. I love Benji. This is the thing. I love Benji.
No, I know. I'm just
but am I allowed to say he's done a great job for 9 weeks and 1 week?
Yeah,
Is that being objective?
No. This is more about me being biased, right? Yeah, I'm going to have one criticism of Benji.
Sure.
Alex Seifert should not be playing first grade.
Okay. I mean, look, I'm going to put a qualifier there. He tries his ass off. I just don't like.
Mate, I promise you, Rob. I promise. If I played next week, I'd try my ass off. Wouldn't be any good, but I would try my absolute ass off.
Well, I think I stand corrected. I'm pretty sure he made over 50 tackles and missed 4. I know they put on that side, but
in the modern day, when you make a lot of tackles, you know what that means?
It means you're a target.
You're a target, okay? So there's a reason for that. The other reason I'll say, and I'm being a little bit harsh here, this is my problem with him. There was one on the weekend, I think they scored a try off it. Terrell's got someone locked up in a tackle, and Seifert comes in and hits Terrell, which actually loses his grip, and then they offload. I don't think he's very smart with his decision making. We've seen that when he just threw that pass and they just ran the length. We've seen him have brain explosions in the past. Benji loves him. Got to support Benji. Not on this one bench. I don't know.
Well,
he's
just before I ask you for your prediction for this week. Before I ask you for your prediction this week, just remember in the James Graham buy round podcast, because you're talking about players we might sign and might not sign, and it might worry you a little bit. I'm happy with re-signing Adam. I think Adam's done enough this year to at least at a minimum be a depth player, but he's been reasonably fine. His defensive reads are pretty good. But he talks about signing Naden as well. He talks about, like, you know, not having...
Who said that?
Shane Richardson. He mentions the fact that because we're losing Lockie, now I can negotiate with other players about extending him. I'm pretty sure those... Look, I listened to it about 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago, whenever it came out, before he went overseas. But I'm pretty sure he mentions those two names. So you might not be... I mean, look, I hope what Naden's shown in the last few weeks is, you know, means he's not re-signed. But I'm pretty sure Naden was mentioned.
Yeah, look, at the end of the day, you know, we can sit here and put up a wish list and sort of try to sign these guys. And I could say that we're not going to sign 7 players. But if there's no one willing to sign for you, well, then you've got no choice. You've got to keep a squad, and you've got to... If Naden's better than whoever else there is out there, well, then unfortunately we've got to sign him. I think the difference with what we're doing at the moment is it's like when we signed James Roberts. Remember we signed James Roberts and everyone got the shits about that? We signed James Roberts for minimum contract. If Brent Naden stays at our club and we re-sign him, and we re-sign him on 200,000 a year, whatever the minimum is, 170,000. Okay, like if that's because the blokes that are on that sort of money are player 27, 28, 29, 30. If that's who we're paying to be 27, 28, 29, 30, that's good. That's a good, that's a good position we're in. That's the key to this all. So, and I'm talking about your Feladies, your Matamuas, your Toomuths, your Fata Arpes. Yeah, there's 4 guys. Your Kit Laulili, Solomon Isukuru. Trying to see who else is in that. But there's 6 guys who are never going to touch first grade. So that's the problem we've got. It's those guys. It's those 6 guys.
Who's going to win Sunday, mate? Who's going to win Sunday?
Oh, mate, the Tigers. Come on, the Tigers.
You know you were out by 77 points last week.
Yeah.
13 plus the 64 down. It's 77.
Look, I'm this week. I'm going with, no matter what, I'm going with my heart this week. Yeah. I love the club, and I love the boys, and I'm going to back them. So, yeah, let's. I hate those Sunday 6 o'clock games at Campbelltown. They've never been good to us in the past, have they?
No, they haven't. All right. Well, look, thanks very much for joining us, Adel, mate. It's been a really good, friendly conversation. We don't agree on everything tonight, but that's okay. I think we've both been pretty objective, or at least tried to back it up with some reasonable logic and reasoning. Are you going to be watching the game live Sunday night at 6 o'clock from Queensland?
I shall be, yes.
All right, mate. Well, look, thanks again for joining us. To everyone out there, meet us at the Orange Grove on Wednesday night for the game. And please try and make an effort to get to Campbelltown this week. We've got to try and get a win out there. It's huge if we can get a win and get that bye straight after it. And if you do happen to go to Campbelltown, come and say good day to us. We're going to be doing some post-game reactions after the game with Josh and Aaron. So have a good week, everyone, and see you at the Orange Grove on Wednesday night.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the West Tigers Life podcast. You can join us every Wednesday night live at 8:30 p.m. from the Orange Grove Hotel. A big thank you to Orange Grove Hotel for their support, as well as iChoice Home Loans. If you want to hear more from the West Tigers Life podcast, go to westtigers.com.au. That'll be our link tree, and you'll find links to all our social media, and you can sign up at our Patreon at patreon.com/WestLife. Join us next time on West Tigers Life.